Story 1. One specific thing I learned is how to solve a Rubik's Cube. People would actually think I was a genius because I could pick one up at someone's house or party and solve it in a minute. The reality is, if you learn the basic method, it's all about memorizing steps. It really has nothing to do with puzzle-solving skills or intelligence. Story 2. Seeming to know everything. If a person feels the need to be an expert on everything and acts as though they cannot learn anything new from others, they may be compensating for a significant lack of understanding. Alternatively, they might genuinely believe they know everything, which makes them less intelligent than those who recognize their limitations and are merely trying to improve. Story 3. The biggest sign of artificial intelligence is using jargon and making things appear more complex than they are. Story 4. Being good at memorizing things. I used to think my perfect test scores in college meant I was very intelligent until I entered the real world and realized that memorizing facts is not the same as truly understanding them. Story 5. Which college they attended matters. Some individuals attend prestigious institutions simply because they have financial means, while others with intelligence may attend lesser-known schools due to affordability. Story 6. Being good at trivia is one thing I excel at, but I can get lost in a mall I have visited 1,000 times. I may not be that smart, just good at trivia. Story 7. The best people I have ever been around, whether in business or pleasure, were those who were not afraid to ask questions, admit deficiencies, and cultivate relationships of mutual benefit. They dropped the facade and consulted with those who mastered their crafts. Confidence combined with compassion is now, more than ever, needed in a government riddled with uncertainty. Story 8. Not listening to experts. While hundreds of people have dedicated their lives to learning about a subject, it is clear that one can feel more knowledgeable by simply reading a few social media posts. Story 9. Travel. Many people assume that frequent travel leads to greater enlightenment and connection with various cultures around the world. However, I have encountered many individuals who, despite having the means to travel, lack a meaningful understanding of the cultures they visit. Story 10. Having connections to influential and wealthy individuals can lead to surprising assumptions about intelligence. People often believe that someone is intelligent simply because they come from a background of financial wealth or political influence. It doesn't even have to be family. Sometimes all it takes is associating with a person who has significant connections and influence for one to be perceived as intelligent and powerful. Story 11. Acting in a disrespectful manner does not apply to everyone. There are individuals who clearly lack intelligence. However, many people mistakenly believe that a lack of empathy or social awareness suggests superiority and intelligence. In reality, it simply indicates impatience and a lack of consideration for others. Story 12. Being objective or unemotional in a debate or argument is not a requirement. You can be emotional, coherent, and logical simultaneously. Story 13. Reading a lot of books can vary in value. Depending on your choice of material, you may not gain new insights about the world or improve your vocabulary. Similar to binge-watching a show, but in a printed format. Story 14. I believe that the ability to admit when you are wrong and change your stance in light of new information is a strong indicator of intelligence. Therefore, I consider the opposite to be true. Story 15. Bullying, compassion, and mutual understanding work best for everyone. Whether you are selling fruit cups, cars, or drugs, these current gangster tactics are no more proper or efficient than when DMX opted to stop, drop, and open up shop. Story 16. Writing a long explanation to clarify a concept is a practice ingrained in academia. Meanwhile, they fail to notice that no one understands it and are frustrated by the need to provide further clarification. Story 17. Academic credentials may indicate intelligence, but they do not necessarily do so. They are more reliably a sign of deep knowledge in a particular subject, field, or specialty. Knowledge is not the same as intelligence. Story 18. Confidence in everything they say. Supreme confidence is easy when you don't understand nuanced details. Story 19. A degree in a specific field is important. I interact with people daily who have higher levels of education than I do, yet still can't write a decent email or distinguish between where, and were. Story 20. I used to work with a woman who believed that stammering was a sign of intelligence, but she just sounded unconvincing. Story 21. I am quite good at quizzes, and people often think this means I am clever. However, while I might know that, for instance, Thomas Hardy wrote Tess of the D'Urberville, or that Malvolio is a character from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, I only know this on a trivial level. I know nothing about these works and would probably not understand them if I tried to read them. It's no cleverer at the level that I know it than knowing that Pikachu is a Pokemon. My tastes in films and books are actually quite lowbrow. Knowledge and intelligence are two different things. Story 22. A lot of people do not realize that memory can make you seem much smarter than you are. I have an incredible memory, and people think I am intelligent. Story 23. The need to prove that you are intelligent can be unnecessary. Truly intelligent people tend to be quiet because they are secure with their level of intelligence and competence, demonstrating qualities such as humility and observational skills. A secure leader strikes a balance between leading and following, recognizing that they do not know everything and can learn from their team members. In contrast, an insecure leader may be controlling and dictatorial, often leading to short-sightedness. Relying solely on logic instead of intuition can limit one's perspective. Being intuitive means that an inner voice can guide and protect you in ways that written words may not. Story 24. Being overly confident about oneself is not intelligence. Nuance and maintaining a sense of uncertainty about matters likely define true intelligence. Story 25. Conspiracy theories are often believed only by those who are caught up in them, while others think they are irrational. Story 26. Taking a poorly calculated risk that happens to pay off. Some people just get lucky. Story 27. A PhD may indicate high intelligence, and I might possess one along with a considerable IQ. However, that does not prevent me from feeling foolish in certain situations. Story 28. Having bookcases full of books does not necessarily indicate intelligence. Conversely, a lack of books is not a sign of a lack of intelligence. The presence of books does not mean someone is an avid reader. Story 29. I will never forget the couple I had as customers who could never understand that spending more than they had in their bank account caused them to incur overdraft fees. Their final response before they left was, "I have a Master of Business Administration." Story 30. Calling everyone else foolish over disagreements. No one yells "fool" louder than the biggest person in the room. Story 31. Attending college can sometimes lead to a disconnect between theoretical knowledge and practical skills. Mechanical engineers and electrical engineers may enter the workforce but often lack the hands-on experience that vocational technology specialists possess. While engineers take on salaried positions, vocational technology specialists are the ones who engage in real-world tasks and have valuable practical knowledge. It's quite amusing. Story 32. Good grades in school require real studying, forming your own conclusions, and truly understanding the material. This is challenging, so most students tend to memorize content to achieve high grades. Story 33. Most people consider me intelligent because I attended a good university and wear glasses. However, the only intelligent thing about me is that I know neither of these factors is a true sign of intelligence. I don't know. Maybe they are, and I am just too unaware to realize it. Story 34. Writing a lengthy explanation to clarify a point is often how academia teaches individuals to communicate. However, they frequently overlook the fact that their audience struggles to understand, leading to frustration when additional clarification is needed. Story 35. A high IQ does not necessarily mean that someone with a photographic memory can apply the knowledge they possess. Story 36. A PhD involves going through the peer review process and spending 10 years in academia. Earning a PhD does not necessarily mean you are smart. Story 37. Getting into and graduating from prestigious universities is a common focus. I can't speak for the entire world, but in India, people often push themselves to get through colleges and universities, secure good jobs, but find themselves lacking in other areas of life. Story 38. Education. I know many intelligent, educated people. However, I also know several individuals with bachelor's and master's degrees who lack common sense. Story 39. On a related note, if you want to determine if someone is intelligent, observe their conversation with another person and notice how much time they spend listening and processing what is said before they respond. If this time is greater than the time they spend speaking, they are likely quite intelligent. Story 40. Constantly engaging people in debates, especially when they did not agree to debate in the first place, can be unproductive. Story 41. Being really good at something is what I call the Ja Rule crisis. Dave Chappelle has a great joke about this. Just because someone is famous for something or skilled at something doesn't mean it translates to other areas. He was a good rapper in the early 2000s, but that doesn't mean you bring him onto news channels to discuss events like September 11th and current affairs. Story 42. Intelligence quotient primarily measures how quickly and efficiently an individual can learn new information, standardizing the scale for easy understanding. However, it does not reflect how someone applies their knowledge in real-world situations. Story 43. Being elected president, serving as Senate Minority Leader, and being appointed as Director of National Intelligence, Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of Health and Human Services. Story 44. Trying to simplify things. The smartest people are those who can clarify complex concepts. Story 45. Cynicism. Assuming everyone is selfish and dishonest may make you appear wise and experienced, but it does not guarantee that you are. Story 46. A desire to win arguments and do so loudly. Intelligence will always collaborate to find the best solution. Story 47. Knowing many words and using advanced vocabulary. I am not particularly intelligent. I have simply read extensively. Story 48. Pauses while speaking. The look of judgment when you disagree with someone. White hair conveys a seasoned, smart appearance. Affected accent. Story 49. Quoting famous people's phrases and using them as unwarranted advice, then trying to force them into any situation. Story 50. Wealth. Being rich does not equal being intelligent or hardworking. For example, many billionaires, including individuals like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, were born into wealth and privilege and create nothing of value while merely accumulating money. Story 51. I think people assume that when they hear someone speak with a British accent, they believe that person is intelligent. I'm referring to a BBC network news anchor, not a Cockney chimney sweep with a top hat. Story 52. Material possessions. When I was a child, I believed that someone wealthy was also a highly intelligent person. Story 53. Being well-spoken is a skill. Some people express themselves more effectively than others, and many perceive this as a sign of education or intelligence. In reality, it may simply indicate that they have learned to imitate persuasive speech patterns effectively. Story 54. I attended a dinner party where an arrogant individual boasted about his vast knowledge on various topics. It was truly baffling how he did not realize how ridiculous he sounded. I recognized many of his claims from recent YouTube videos. Additionally, only a small portion of the internet uses English as their first language. Story 55. Believing that critical thinking is a special skill that only a few possess. They simply disagree with you, Sheldon. Story 56. Spelling accuracy is variable. Some individuals can spell well while others struggle. It is not an indicator of intelligence. Criticizing people online for spelling mistakes is often seen as an easy target. Story 57. Being a good person is important. There are many good individuals who may not be particularly intelligent, and there are also some unpleasant people who happen to be intelligent. Story 58. Being a libertarian, they all think they are intelligent. Why? Because many extraordinarily wealthy individuals are libertarians. It is an unusual perspective. Story 59. Thinking they know everything. When a person believes they are the smartest individual in every room, they stop asking questions and cannot comprehend that any decision they make could be incorrect. Sometimes, these individuals may be highly intelligent, but their arrogance leads them to make poor decisions, while a more humble, less intelligent person would make wise choices. If the person driving will not ask for directions, All the power in the world will not get you there any faster. Story 60. Good results in school. A person I knew who attended top schools and universities in the country ended up in a multi-level marketing scheme and negatively impacted his life. Story 61. Most answers reflect personal frustrations about individuals who consider themselves intelligent. Is having a good memory a sign of intelligence? Yes, it is included in the list of indicators of intelligence. Does it mean a person is a genius? No. Having a fever is an indicator of pneumonia, but taken alone, it does not hold much significance. Story 62. Mocking people when they do not know a particular fact that the knowledgeable person knows is unproductive. Egotists may not be lacking in intelligence, but in my experience, the best they achieve is being the big fish in a small pond. They often lack the mental resilience to push beyond their comfort zones and face challenges that lead to greater knowledge. Story 63. Eloquence. You can use long, overly complex terms to describe something and still have no idea what you are talking about. For example, consider Russell Brand or Joey Tribbiani when he uses a thesaurus for every word. Story 64. Watching or reading a lot of news means you are likely absorbing a significant amount of bias without realizing it, or perhaps you simply do not care. Story 65. Liking a certain kind of music is common. The number of people who feel superior based on their musical preferences is astonishing. They spend their time criticizing other artists and individuals, which frankly makes them sound immature. Story 66. Achieving a good grade on a test is an accomplishment, but when your average is C's and D's with the occasional B-, it doesn't necessarily reflect intelligence. It simply indicates that you are not currently failing at something. I understand this because my sister believes she is smarter than I am, but when I compare our report cards, I can't help but wonder. Story 67. Using long words like positive and affirmative is unnecessary. The words yes and use are perfectly fine choices. Story 68. Sexualizing inappropriate individuals. I had a friends with benefits arrangement with a girl, and while we were hanging out with a friend, she started texting me in a suggestive manner about the three of us having a threesome. Our friend was completely unaware and was just there to spend time with us. Felt predatory to me. I would have been open to a threesome, but this guy was our friend and clearly had no sexual intentions. Story 69. Answering a question with a long, detailed response may indicate that a knowledgeable or honest individual provides an answer that matches the complexity of the question itself. Story 70. Consequences of using complex vocabulary without necessity. Issues with using long words unnecessarily. Story 71. Someone's extensive collection of books is displayed on shelves, usually in view of guests and video callers. There is no evidence that any of the books have been fully read and understood by the owner. It is highly doubtful that the books are regularly studied. Rather, they are kept on display as a trophy to imply a sense of superiority in the owner's knowledge. Story 72. Memorizing pi and solving the Rubik's Cube involve memorizing sequences of numbers and steps. Story 73. Asking many questions, especially when people do not realize they are asking silly questions, can be very annoying rather than intelligent. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.